So you should be seeing the just the title slide. Now, it seems obvious why someone would go to Brazil to see birds, but I doubt that many realize just how special Brazil is. Brazil could easily be the most biodiverse country in the world. Brazil has 1,823 confirmed bird species, of which 283 are endemic. Canada has, you could correct me on this, but Canada has about 690 bird species and no endemics. At the same time, Brazil is 1 million square miles smaller than Canada. But Brazil is still a big place, and one doesn't set out to cover the entire country. So we are going to look at just one region. The Amazon basin is easily recognized on a map of Brazil, but we're not going there. The Pantanal is a much smaller and more difficult to find basin, that it is also, like the Amazon, a basin that is completely hemmed in by mountains. And you probably heard about the flooded forest in the Pantanal, and it's the rainfall in the mountains that floods the Pantanal each year. The Pantanal is about the size of the United Kingdom, and that makes the Pantanal the largest undeveloped wetland in the world. The Pantanal covers more than 65,000 square miles, 80% of which is submerged during the rainy season. But the biodiversity of the Pantanal is incredible, and for that reason, it is a UNESCO World Biosphere Reserve. So the reptiles consist of caiman, snakes, and lizards. Amphibians are frogs, toads, and salamanders. But the Pantanal alone has 2/3 of the birds in all of Canada. And it's the birds we're primarily here for. So here we go. We flew into, I've got something on my screen. I'm just gonna, there we go. I'm clear. We flew into Cuiabá, as you can see in the upper right of the screen, and immediately headed out on the Transpantaneira Road. This is 100 miles of raised dirt road stitched together by 122 wooden bridges. Now, Pantanal comes from the Portuguese word pantano, meaning wetland, bog, or swamp. Very appropriate. So we didn't travel very far that first day. We stopped for 2 nights at a lodge, and immediately were immersed in the incredible world of birds that is the Pantanal. The Toco toucan is about 25 inches in length. It's the largest of the toucans and has the largest bill with respect to body size of any bird. The lifespan is typically 20 years, but with a wingspan of only 20 inches, they are poor flyers, and they're preyed on by jaguars, snakes, and eagles. So they generally hang out in groups as protection from predators. They have very strong feet and toes, and these are adapted to support much of their movement, which consists of walking or hopping among tree branches rather than flying. Now, troupials are in the same family as orioles and meadowlarks. This one is about 9 inches long. They feed on fruits and insects, and found at all levels of the canopy, but they also sip nectar from flowers. They are nest pirates. They seek out and seize the oriole-like hanging nests of other birds. So they'll use one nest to raise their young, but they will steal two nests because each of the pair will sleep in a separate nest. The yellow-rumped cacique is nearly a foot long. The males are highly territorial and polygynous. Male dominance is determined by size and counter singing. I take that to mean that the males sit on high perches and shout at each other. One website describes it as the males form sequential consortships with 1 to 27 females. Sounds like a busy guy. They form colonies which might consist of up to 100 bag-shaped nests in a tree, which also contains an active wasp's nest. The wasps provide protection from mammals and botflies. And this is one of the nests that's often stolen by the troupial we just saw. The colony will get together to mob predatory birds, and the wasps apparently afford additional protection from monkeys. But the most interesting thing I found is they tend to nest on islands, and this is a protection from snakes. So caiman and giant otters prey on swimming snakes. Pretty interesting adaptation. And abandoned nests are interspersed with active nests. Probably this serves as camouflage for the active nests, and perhaps the abandoned nests are the ones that are used by the troupials. Southern crested caracara has a body length of about 26 inches and a wingspan over 4 feet, but it's often seen foraging for insects on the ground. It can be aggressive around a food source like an animal carcass where it displaces black and turkey vultures. And it also steals food from other raptors and gulls and pelicans. It has one of the most diverse diets of all raptors. It will literally eat anything it can catch, and it even eats fruit. This is a large tyrant flycatcher, the body length of about 8.5 inches and a wingspan of 16 inches. A group of kingbirds are collectively known as a coronation or a court or a tyranny of kingbirds. It perches conspicuously, and when nesting, it flies out to confront many sorts of birds that come too close to the nest. And even when not nesting, they aggressively defend their territory against intruders, even much larger birds such as frigate birds, toucans, caracaras, and hawks. I found it encouraging to read that this is one of the few birds that that has a population that's actually increasing. Most birds that I read about, even in Brazil, they are decreasing in numbers. Now, this is not a hummingbird. In fact, it's about 15 inches long. And it's a ground nester. The eggs are laid in a burrow in a bank or a termite mound, and they feed almost exclusively on flying insects. especially dragonflies, butterflies, and moths. After the jacamar has caught an insect, it beats it several times against a branch to stun it and remove the insect's wings before it swallows. Um, now, they feed largely on butterflies, but they not all butterflies are edible. And the jacamars largely sight reject inedible butterflies. They learn which ones taste bad, but they quickly snatch edible ones. Naive young jacamars do not show any inhibition to attacking all butterflies, but quickly taste reject unacceptable ones. And I found this interesting, that the butterfly usually survived the taste test. This is a cowbird, about 7 inches long, but it's not a brood parasite. In fact, other cowbirds are nest parasites of the baywing. On a small river, in a small boat, we had a marvelous introduction to the birds of the Pantanal that make a living from the water. Not surprisingly, the black-collared hawk lives mainly on fish, but it'll also catch frogs, snakes, snails, turtles, and small mammals, and even large insects. It snatches prey from the surface. It does not dive like an osprey. This bird is unique enough to be the only species in its genus. They apparently, what's described as, they reselect their mates every year, but they generally reuse their previous nest for a few seasons. It's a fairly large hawk, 2 feet tall, with a wingspan of 4.5 feet. And we were lucky to see it because it's described as generally uncommon. And remember, we're still on our first day in the Pantanal. With a body length of 16 inches and a wingspan of 29 inches, this is a big kingfisher. And because of their size, they can only hover briefly before going into their dive. When underwater, they use their wings for rowing. And as you know, kingfishers, their primary diet is fish, but ring kingfishers have been observed eating hummingbirds. They nest in a burrow in the riverbank, and the eggs are laid on a layer of fish bones and scales. And a group of kingfishers are collectively known as a realm of kingfishers. Again, this is the only member of the genus. It's about 40 inches tall, average wingspan about 5 feet, and the bill is the longest of any of the New World herons. Unusual for birds, both male and female agami herons flaunt colorful courtship plumage during the breeding season. It's sometimes called the hummingbird heron for its colored plumage. It's described as reclusive and rarely seen. And so once again, we were very fortunate to see this bird. The striated heron is about 9 inches tall with a wingspan of about 2 feet. It has a very wide range in South America, Australia, Africa, India, China, Japan, Korea, and Southeast Asia. And I was confused by pictures that I came across online because they didn't look like my photos. Until I read that there are no less than 21 subspecies and that only the juveniles have the stripes for which it's named. And this was once considered to be the same species as the green heron that we're familiar with here. They're now separated, but it shares the same bait fishing technique that we were familiar with the green heron, using an insect or a feather to attract fish. So all of that in just our first 2 days. So now we're back on the Transpantanera Road. It's so rough that at times we were driving in the ditch, and we're heading to Port Joffre. And from there, we got on a small boat to take us to our next destination, which is the Millennium, which will be our home for the next few days. And note the tall mast that provides internet service, even though we are literally in the middle of nowhere. This big floating hotel is just tied to a tree on the riverbank, but inside it's air conditioned and very comfortable. So for the next 3 days, all travel is by boat. It's much more comfortable than that road we just came off. And from now on, the camera is always in my hand. Opportunities for photography appear suddenly and often only last for a split second. You got to be ready. Now, it's one of the frustrating things about researching these birds is how little is known about many of them. So I really couldn't find very much about this bird other than it's about 30 inches tall, but I couldn't even find a wingspan measurement. So a beautiful bird, but I can't tell you much about it. I can only show you the pictures. With a body up to 20 inches long and a wingspan of 4.5 feet, this is the largest of the 3 skimmer species. These guys can live up to 20 years. On hatching, the 2 mandibles are the same length, but the lower mandible grows until it is much longer than the upper. And as I'm sure you already know, they feed by flying low over the water, with the lower mandible skimming the water surface for small fish and insects. They also will pick up crustaceans and mollusks if they come across them. But these are caught by touch, by day or night. They have large dilated pupils so that they can see better in dim light. And they're the only known birds to have pupils that constrict to vertical slits to protect their nocturnal eyes from bright sunlight during the day. Here again, we have a sole member of this time of the family. The genus name comes from the ancient Greek donikos, which means reed, and bios meaning mode of life, which is kind of appropriate as shown in the picture. They live in the reeds. They're about 9 inches tall. It's a widespread bird in South America, but it seems to have been either ignored or simply taken for granted by researchers because little is known about its biology. Now, this strange-looking character is about 36 inches long and weighs about 6.5 pounds. This is one where the total population is declining quite rapidly, and many consider it vulnerable in its range. And in fact, it's been extirpated from large parts of former range due to habitat destruction as well as hunting. The diet is primarily fruit, usually fallen from trees and taken on the ground, but it also will eat seeds, flowers, and invertebrates. They have a peculiar crest formed by feathers that lay flat but have upturned tips. Here we have a male and female. The female has a crest with white feathers with black upturned tips. The locals call this bird the judge, and I think that's a very appropriate name. But even with a wingspan of 5 feet, the black vulture is relatively small for a vulture. It flies very high when foraging, watching for carrion, or watching the behavior of other vultures. And they are aggressive. The black vultures will often drive off turkey vultures to get at dead animals. Once again, we have a bird that's unique enough to be the only member of the genus Jabiru. The large neck pouch is used to carry food and water to chicks in the nest. At 5 feet tall, the Jabiru is the tallest flying bird found in South and Central America. And the name comes from a South American native language, which means appropriately swollen neck. In South America, it has the second largest wingspan, which can be 7 to 9 feet. The only bird with a greater wingspan is the Andean condor. And once again, we have a bird that is the only species in its genus. The diversity down there is just incredible. The wingspan of this tern is about 3 feet. Feeds mainly as many terns by plunge diving from 20 or 30 feet up. A group of terns are collectively known as a ternary or a ewe of terns. Wingspan of this bird is about 6 feet. It lives in tropical and subtropical swamps and estuaries. They're primarily land birds, but they're good swimmers. And to that end, they have partially webbed feet. Their large courtship calls can be heard. Their loud courtship calls can be heard for up to 2 miles. They have large spurs on their wings, which are used in fights over mates and in territorial disputes. Those spurs can break off, but are regularly renewed. They regrow the spurs. Chicks can run as soon as they are hatched, but are usually raised in or near water because they can swim better than they can run. The kokoi is the largest of the South American herons at about 4.5 feet tall. It's similar in size to our great blue heron. They can live up to 24 years. And the biology and behavior is similar to the great blue heron. In the Pantanal alone, there is 9 heron species. The chakalaka is about 18 inches long. They're described as very noisy, and I can attest to that. They are. And chakalaka means chatterbox, another very appropriate name. So the bird sightings are continuous and very exciting, but every moment that we're out on the river, we're on the lookout for the real prize of the Pantanal, which is a jaguar. They patrol the riverbanks in search of their primary prey, which are capybaras and, surprisingly, caiman. The jaguar's bite force, adjusted for body size, is the strongest of all the world's big cats. They're good swimmers and they don't hesitate to plunge into the water after prey. At almost 9 feet in length, including the tail, and 200 pounds, this is a big animal. They have superior night vision and do much of their hunting in the dark. Jaguars are listed as threatened because of loss of habitat and shooting by ranchers who occasionally lose cattle. But jaguar ecotourism represents a gross annual income of almost $7 million across the Pantanal. And that's against a hypothetical total damage of only in cattle losses of just $122,000 per year. So there's no reason why farmers should be killing these animals, but they see them as a threat regardless. So during the dry season, the jaguars are concentrated along rivers and are fairly reliably seen. And in fact, sometimes multiple animals will be encountered, which can give a misleading impression of abundance. And individuals vary in their tolerance of humans. We were very lucky. So we're in a small boat. We're only about 10 feet offshore, and the jaguar is hunting just along the bank and totally ignoring us. So we had a nice, long, close-up look at it. So back to the birds. That was the highlight of that day, but we're far from finished with interesting birds along the river. The lesser yellow-headed vulture has a wingspan of almost 6 feet, and it tends to soar at lower altitudes than other vultures because, like its close relative of the turkey vulture, it hunts by scent. And as you know, few birds have a sense of smell. So, but these two vultures locate carrion by detecting the scent of ethyl mercaptan, which is a gas produced by the beginnings of decay in dead animals. And it's used by humans. Ethyl mercaptan in places, in parts of the world where there are lots of vultures, ethyl mercaptan is injected into pipelines, and engineers looking for leaks then follow the foraging vultures. It's also used as a scent in propane. Now, because of its superior ability to locate carrion, this vulture is often the first to arrive, but it's frequently displaced on the carcass by larger vultures that have followed it. But this often works in its favor since it's not strong enough to break into the hide of a recently dead animal. So the larger vultures open the carcass and the lesser yellowhead eventually is able to feed. The lesser Kiskadee, it's only 7.5 inches, and once again, it's the only species in its genus. This wood rail is about 16 inches tall, inhabits wetlands. It feeds, said to feed at night, though I came across no mention of special adaptations. And I saw it feeding in the middle of the day. So I don't know what that's all about. And its diet ranges from snails to berries. The great black hawk has a body length of about 2 feet, but it often hunts on foot for small reptiles and large insects. but it takes almost anything, including fruit and fish. It also raids the nests of other birds, taking eggs and chicks. Its normal range is entirely tropical from Mexico into South America, but the perils of vagrancy were demonstrated by a juvenile great black hawk. That should read Black Hawk, not Back Hawk. Sorry. Um, in 2018, one appeared in Maine in August, but it eventually died of frostbite in January. This hawk has a wingspan of about 4 feet. The genus name Vanellus is Latin for little fan, and that name is a reference to the sound the wings of lapwings make in flight. There's lots of mentions online about this species, but virtually all of them were dealing with the question of, is it a lapwing or a plover? So once again, the biology of the bird was completely missing from the online information. So traveling a little bit further down the Trans-Pantera Road, we reached our next stop, which was a working ranch that combined ecotourism with horse breeding. And as we arrived, the blue and yellow macaws were putting on a show. This is a large bird with a body up to 34 inches long and a wingspan of upwards of 3 feet. They can live for 30 to 35 years in the wild. And they're popular as pets, and properly cared for, they can live for 60 years. In fact, when they're sold as pets, the owners are frequently warned that the bird might outlive them. Apparently, there's a record of one living for 112 years. They mate for life. They lay 2 or 3 eggs, but the strongest chick gets most of the food brought by their parents, so only one chick typically survives. The ranch also has a few of the spectacular and vulnerable hyacinth macaws. With a body length of over 40 inches and a wingspan of 4.5 feet, it's the largest of the macaws. And they take 7 years to reach sexual maturity. That's part of the reason why they're threatened. They are endangered, but also by the pet trade. And once again, almost all online mentions are about keeping them as pets. And the price of a captive bird in the US can be up to $12,000. But a conservation project in the Pantanal has helped them to double their population in the last 12 years. It's encouraging. And in total, there are 6 species of macaws in the Pantanal. You probably have heard of this bird, one of my favorites. The great patoo hides in plain sight, and it's not a small bird. It has a wingspan of about 30 inches. And even when it's spotted, it's hard to make out what you're looking at. Here we have a female and a chick. There are 7 species of patoos, and the great patoo is the largest. They're nocturnal. They have excellent night vision. They fly in their dark with that huge mouth open to scoop up flying insects. And the diet consists of flying insects like moths, butterflies, and winged beetles. Now, notice those large, dark eyes. And when they are during the day, they spend their day camouflaged in a tree. But those big eyes would spoil the camouflage. So they have to keep their eyes closed. But the great patu can see with its eyes closed. They are born with special notches on the upper eyelids that allow them to see and sense movement even when their eyes are closed, uh, which completes their camouflage. The monk parakeet is, it's a big, for a parakeet, up to 20 inches long. And this is the only parrot that does not nest in a cavity. Instead, it constructs a bulky structure of sticks that can house a single nest or a complex with a dozen or more separate nest chambers. It occupies its stick nest year around, and it sleeps in the nest at night and generally does not wander very far from the nest. Body length of this one is about 12 inches with a 2-foot wingspan. They have the rather strange habit of falling asleep lying on their back. There are 7 parakeet species in the Pantanal, and taken together with the macaws and other related birds, a total of 18 parrots live in the Pantanal. The plush-crested jay has short, rounded wings, which help them maneuver in the thick forest where they spend most of their time. It's about 15 inches long, but when they leave the forest to forage, they fly singly so as not to draw attention. This, in fact, is not a cardinal. It's more closely related to the tanagers, and it's about 7 inches long. It's a seed and fruit eater, and not to be confused with our next bird, which is also called a cardinal, which is also not a cardinal. In spite of the red head and the prominent crest, it's not a true cardinal at all. It is, in fact, a tanager. He's only about 8 inches long. This is a fairly large falcon with a body length up to 22 inches and a wingspan of almost 40 inches, almost a meter. Its most common call is a series of rather human-like cries that sound very much like laughter. And the species name is a Latin word for laughing aloud. It's also called the snake hawk. It's a specialist snake eater. It mainly catches snake, including venomous species. With a body length of 30 inches, this is a fairly large ibis. But its nesting habits are peculiar. They often are seen as solitary nests, but they also nest in large groups. Doesn't seem to be any consistency there. And there are no less than 5 ibis species in the Pantanal. But this has got to be one of the most colorful ibises of all. This is a beautiful medium-sized owl at about 15 inches tall, and it has cinnamon-colored eyes. The striped owl has an enormous range covering most of Central and South America, but But the map shows an unexplained peculiarity. The bird does not enter the Amazon basin. um, and to this point, no one understands why that is. So many thousands of years ago, a huge underground cavern collapsed, allowing the rock above it to drop. This created a sinkhole bigger than a football field and deeper than a 30-story building. And numerous pairs of the red and green macaws nest in the crevices in the red sandstone cliffs. They have a body length of about 3 feet and a wingspan over 4 feet. That makes them the second largest macaw. The hyacinth macaw is the only one that's bigger. And this is the most widespread of the macaws, but it too is threatened. And in recent years, there's been a marked decline in population due to habitat loss and, once again, the illegal pet trade. Their beak can generate pressures up to 2,000 psi, pounds per square inch, which allows them to open the hardest seeds and nuts. By comparison, the human bite force is just 150 psi. They can fly at 35 miles an hour, and they mate for life and are generally seen flying together. They can live for up to 60 years. Gorgeous birds. And that's where we will leave the Pantanal. So I hope you got something out of that.